Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. It's your brother Quan Watt of the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp, coming with a quick lesson to the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And, this afternoon or this morning, I just want to touch on how peace is in staying the course, right? Reading out of this book, The Daily Stoic, right? It's, gives different, philosophers, takes on different topics and things of that nature. But it's speaking on, how peace is in having the correct path pretty much, man, right? And that's what we have in this knowledge, right? This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's why I have this Isaiah 33:6 pulled up, right? But just reading this excerpt, it reads, now this is from the Moral Letters of Seneca. It says, tranquility can't be grasped except by those who have reached an unwavering and firm power of judgment, right? And the Lord is, training up the judges, man, right? Actually, let's get that, right? Because we're in the midst of those judges being raised up, right, and restored. It says, Isaiah 1:26, and I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city, right? So this is what we're doing. We're seeing right now is the judges, right, are the ones who are going to have peace in these times, man, right? Who are going to have the stability in these times that, we're walking into Jacob's trouble, man, right? The great persecution, the time of testing, But going back, we'll go hold this real quick and I'll finish this out. It says, the rest constantly fall and rise in their decisions, wavering in a state of alternatively rejecting and accepting things, man. That's instability, man, right? This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding offers you that stability. That's why it says wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, right? The rest of the world, right, they're in a complete, in a wave of uncertainty, man, right? But we have peace, right, through that stability. It says, in strength of salvation, the fear of the Lord is his treasure, right? So, in fearing Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, we have that ultimate value, man, right? We're holding on to that, right, until, until he makes his final appearance, man. Lord willing, we stay the course. It says, continuing on, it says, what is the cause of this back and forth is because nothing is clear and they rely on the most uncertain guide, common opinion, right? So the way the world teaches, right, is uncertainty, right? The common opinion. That's why the scriptures say, let me get this. Let me see. I was a little wise. Wise of this world, right? Well, even this is yep. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 25. It reads, because the foolishness of the Most High is wiser than men, and the weakness of the Most High is stronger than men. Foresee your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many notable are called, right? So as we read, it says the cause of the back and forth, the cause of the uncertainty, right, is because the cause of the uncertainty is that them leaning upon the wisdom of this world, man, right? It says, so what is the cause of this back and forth is because nothing is clear, and they rely on the most uncertain guide, common opinion, right? So the common understanding, right, is why the rest of the world is in a state of confusion, man, because the wisdom of Yahweh Shema Shai isn't afforded to the masses, right? It says, for you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many notable are called, or not many noble are called, right? It says, but the Most High hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and the Most High hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, right? So these people are being confounded, right? So what would be what's the word? What they consider common sense, right? The things that are commonly accepted, right, are the reason why they're in a state of uncertainty, man, right? And ultimately why they're gonna lack that peace, that stability in these times to come, because they don't understand the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? And it's a blessing that we've received that, right? But again, it says the excerpt titled is "Peace is in Staying the Course," man. Right, so in staying the course and continuing in this this walk, right, is where your peace lies. Right, we're continuing in the faith, continuing in the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Right, constant growth. Right, as brothers often go into. Right, that's where your stability is gonna lie. It's a lot. Yeah, that's the point on that. Let's get this here. It says, just in the last excerpt out of this book, it reads, instead, tranquility and peace are found in identifying our path and sticking to it, right? And we've identified that through the Spirit and Prophet Yahweh Shem Shai, right? It's been revealed unto us, right? Like in the scriptures talk about how the election have obtained it, but the rest were blinded, man, right? Hold on. This is Romans 11:7. It reads, what then? Israel had not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded, man. So we've obtained that, right? We've obtained that ability to identify the correct path, man, right? Following the path that was forged by Yahweh Shai, right? Following the path and example of our forefathers, right? Continuing on, it reads, staying the course, making adjustments here and there, naturally, but ignoring the distracting sirens who beckon us to turn toward the rocks, right? And, you go into, what's it called, Greek mythology. It speaks on those sirens, right? That would, lure the ships in with that song, right? Until they crashed and ultimately perished, man. Right? And that's what this world is trying to do. That's why, philosophy is likened unto a woman, man. Right? The ways of this world are likened unto a seductive woman, right? And ultimately, pulling men into the world and to their ultimate demise, man. Right? And that's why it's likened unto a siren, right? That song going out, right? But we have the true song, right, in this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, man. Right? Let's get this here. Get a few precepts. Jeremiah 6:16. This is Jeremiah chapter 6 and verse 16. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, right? And to stand is to be, firmly rooted, man. Going back to, that unwavering and firm power of judgment that we read about, right? being unwavering, unmovable, right? Being steadfast, as the scripture said. It says, stand ye in the way and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, right? So you ask where the good way is, right? And it's revealed unto us. Now we have to continue to walk that path, regardless of the obstacles that are put in our way, right? That's why I said making adjustments right here and there, right? But ignoring those distractions, ignoring those things that are meant to pull you off the path, right? As the scriptures go into the straight gate, right, where it be fire on one side and water on the other, right? You have to maintain, right, that walk on the straight and narrow, man, right? Because it's death on either side, and those walls, right, are getting tighter and tighter, man. Right, that gate is getting more and more narrow, right? So your steps have to be even more carefully planted, you know. It says, and walk therein, and you shall find rest for your souls, right? So that tranquility, that peace, right? In understanding and staying the course, continuing in the ways, right? In the legacy, the work of our forefathers, man. Continuing in the legacy of Yahweh Shai, right? Just continuing on that path, right? Until we reach, that end goal, man, being the kingdom, right? Being the salvation, that covering and protection in these times of tribulation, right? It says, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. And that goes into, right, the rest of the world, man, right? Chiefly you other Israelites, 2/3 are going to refuse to walk in the ways of the Lord. Though the way has been presented to us, to all of us, right? That's why the scriptures tell us they shall not have any cloak for their sins, man, right? Because everybody's been presented this same thing, right? But whether or not you received it, that's your salvation or not, man, right? And ultimately, we've all been predestined for our lots, right? So we just pray that we continue on this path, right? We stay the course. Let's get Colossians. This is Colossians chapter 2 and verse 6. It reads, as ye have therefore received Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, the Lord, so walk ye in him, right? So walk as Yahweh Shai walked, right? To the best of our abilities, because we're not perfect. That's where that mercy comes into play. Rooted and built up, right? So being rooted, being firmly, established in the faith, as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving, right? So as we have been taught, right, being rooted and firmly, set in these ways, man, right, unwavering, right, having that firmness, Let's read this in the NLT. It says, and now just as you accepted Hamashiach Yahweh Shai as your Lord, you must continue to follow him, right? His sheep, hear his voice and they follow, right? And we're going to follow right to the end, man, right? And said, let your roots grow down into him and let your lives be built on him, right? He is that cornerstone, right? He's the foundation, the author and finisher of our faith, right? So we let your roots, right, take firm hold, right, of Yahweh Shai. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness, right? So we're growing strong. We're being, as it said in the book, it said we will have that peace and tranquility, right? As we continue to take that, stay the course, man, right? Stay firm in our faith and our belief, right? Against all odds, because everything is against us, right? The whole world is against us, but we have the that trump card, so to speak, right? We have that cheat code, being in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, man, right? Let's go here. This 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 14. It reads, but continue, right? Just, stay in the course, just, building on that topic. Continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, right? And how do we get assured of things, man? Right? Through, through prayer, right? Through the Lord, bringing us through different trials, right? Through overcoming things through the Spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? That's assuring us. That's Scripture say confirming the souls of the disciples, man, right? We're being strengthened, right, through our various what's the word? Our day-to-day walks, man, right? It says, but continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, right? So we understand, the men, starting with our apostles and elders on down, right? We've learned from them, right? They learned from their elders, and ultimately we're all receiving the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man, right? So we've received this, right? So now we know, how to continue, man. Even going back to, that Jeremiah 6:16, right? We see what the old ways, the old path was, man, right? And we're walking in that to the best of our ability, right? And so we see, right, the correct way, and we're doing our best, to continue in that, right? Because we understand that's where our peace and safety is going to come from, man, right? The world is going to cry peace and safety in the realm of the worldly understanding, right? Like it said in here, common opinion, right? They're going to rely on common opinion, but it's uncertainty, right? This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and you say peace and safety, right? You understand your peace and safety is in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? Let's get this, and then we'll close out. This is 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 15. It reads, therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, right? And this is the tradition of the prophets, man, right? To give these warnings, right? To serve the Lord, right? To uphold that standard, right? This is the tradition, of the believers of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, It says, which ye have been taught, whether by word or by epistle, right? And what we're seeing right now is, right, these epistles going out, right? Every video you see is an epistle, right, of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? So you're either being taught by these videos, right, or by word, which still is the videos, but brothers who have the blessing to be a part of camps, right? You have the speaking that you have, between each other, man, right? Building in the spirit, right? Brother to brother, So this is all things that we're being taught, we're being built up in, right? Just again to stay the course in order to receive of that tranquility, man, that peace. Because let me read that again, because it's a heavy point. It says, tranquility and peace are found in identifying our path and sticking to it, right? So sticking to this path is a guarantee of peace, man. It says, making adjustments here and there naturally, but ignoring the distracting sirens who beckon us to turn toward the rocks, right? So this is continuing in the correct way, right? The way that's not going to lead to destruction, because the ways of man, right, inevitably are going to lead to death, man. But the way of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is what? Life and peace, right? We'll read this in the NLT. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 15 in the NLT. With all these things in mind, dear brothers and sisters, stand firm and keep a strong grip on the teaching we passed on to you, both in person and by letter, man, right? So just standing firm, right? Continuing in the way, right? Staying the course, right? The course has been charted, right? The waves are going to get rocky, man. We're on that ship, right? It's going to get rocky. Things are going to be getting, tossed around. It's going to feel scary, right? And, just as the when Yahweh Shai was on the boat with the disciples, man, right? They were afraid, right? But we understand that's another example, right? That we have peace, right? We have the tranquility found in this, man, right? regardless of what the circumstances we find ourselves in, right? We always have this peace because the victory has been sealed, man. Right? We just have to stay the course. We have to pray, right, to continue to be diligent, right, to continue to maintain in the faith, right, to not fall away, right, for the Lord to keep His Spirit on us, man, right, to be able to continually grow. You know, these are things that we have to ask for. The spiritual gifts, right, for us to be built up to continue in this path, man, and to finish the race. But that's pretty much the point. Lord willing, it's edifying through the Spirit and power. How about Shema Shai? I'm going to close by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom, and Kwame Australa, and the Bible Ball. Shalom.